Okay, I think we're all set to go. Jody, if you'd like
Okay.
to take a roll, I can do that.
Pat, can you hear us?
Right.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so the camera systems in the boardroom are not working properly, so I'll dial in the boardroom using the phone only, just so you know. So we are good to go.
And,
Thank you.
okay, and it should be streaming live on YouTube now, so I think we're all set to go. Okay, for the roll call this morning, City of Avondale, Shirlene Pinella. Here. Roger Klinginger, City of Buckeye.
Roger Klingler here.
Sorry. Ryan Peters, City of Chandler.
Ryan Peters is here.
Autumn Grooms, City of El Mirage.
Autumn Grooms is here.
Town of Fountain Hills, Dave Trimble.
Here.
Town of Gilbert, Rob Bohr.
Yes, I'm here.
Kevin Phelps, City of Glendale.
Here.
Julie Karen, City of Goodyear.
Here.
Jacqueline Edwards, Maricopa County.
Cameron Dolan filling in for Jacqueline Edwards.
Thank you. Jody Sorrell, City of Mesa.
Here.
Eric Strunk, City of Peoria.
Here.
Mario Paniagua, City of Phoenix.
Here.
Bruce Gardner, Town of Queen Creek.
Here.
Mark Milanchenko, City of Scottsdale.
Here.
City of Surprise, Mike Gent. City of Tempe, Stephen Methvin.
I'm here, Pat.
Okay. And Shatwan Reed's ADOT. Okay, Jody, we're ready to go.
Good morning. Chris Brady is out of town today, so I get the honor of hosting the next two meetings in his place. If a committee member would like to ask questions or make a comment during the meeting, please type your comment into the box and it will be read out loud and answered. And just a reminder for all meeting attendees to please mute your computer microphone or your phone during the, unless you're speaking during the meeting to minimize some feedback. With that, Pat, do we have any public comment?
Yes, I believe Blue Crowley is in the boardroom today.
Okay, Blue, do you want to go for your 3 minutes?
I'd rather stay and give it to you. Handing
I'm good with that.
handing a document to staff for the record and for the minutes. With what you're doing today in both joint meeting and in transit only, there's 3 different items that I'd like to deal with. The first is the printing service contract. It's nice that you want to take care of the system, but since you're not going to be printing a bus book, is the reason that you did that for your own benefit or for the public's? Just a thought. And the next is the paying for our lobbyist. Now, you know that all of that money has to come out of Prop 400 because you can't use any of your monies to support the lobbyists that is federal funding. It's against our rules. And I want to hope and make sure that you're doing that so that we're not in violation. And then the last thing is from the transit meeting, you're going to have proposed service changes. Well, that document I'm handing to staff has on it with what the board members asked to get more clarity on. It has all of the things that the supergrid service is supposed to have been gotten done over the years for the bus. Now, I noticed that there is no cutback in any of the rail on what they're supposed to have. In fact, they've expanded it. But when I want every cent going to the buses, and I look and see that starting in 2012, the Litchfield Road, Camelback going to Litchfield Road was supposed to happen. That's never been done. I look at the McDowell. I look at the Thunderbird that is supposed to have been going into Fountain Hills. Now, Fountain Hills is sitting on the board, but we don't have any bus going there yet except for an express that they're now starting to use. Bell Road, and my favorites, 99th Avenue, and also the one that you're supposed to be doing next year would be Desert Sky Transit Center to Arrowhead Transit Center. That would be on 85th and 75th Avenues. Now, Phoenix has installed some bus service on 83rd, but where and where are you going to do the rest of it? So these are the things that you said you were going to do. I don't see any of them being dealt with for over, 12 to now 8 years. Please do what we told you that you needed to do and get it done right and correctly. Thank you.
Thanks, Blue. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Chief Executive Officer's report. Scott?
Thank you, Jody. A couple quick items. We'd like to recognize that October 4th through the 8th is Customer Service Week, and Valley Metro provides our customer service. Well, first of all, customer service is something we really strive to do on a daily basis, but we also have a specific customer service staff and center that provides customer service to everybody in the region, regardless of which system they take. And we have over 30 Valley Metro staff who provide great customer service, connect communities, enhance lives every day. We're very, very grateful for them because they are the primary contact with the public, one of the primary contacts with the public, along with our operators and those who are out on the line. So we're very, very grateful to them. Second thing is, this is Ed Zerker's last week before he retires as city manager in Phoenix, and we at Valley Metro would just like to congratulate him on his retirement and also thank him. Many decades of service specifically to public transit, been a longtime supporter of public transit, and we'd like to congratulate Ed, thank him for his work. We have a little gift form that we will send over to his office, a memento about some of the impacts that he's had directly and indirectly on public transportation through his service with Phoenix Transit and with the Valley Metro over the years. So congratulations, Ted. Other than that, calendar, you see we have our Audit and Finance Subcommittee tomorrow, and then Board of Directors meeting in 2 weeks, and then the November meetings, as you'll see, they will continue until further notice to be hybrid. You are all invited, those who would like to come to the boardroom. It is open, but we will also make available WebEx and services for you. And Madam Chair, that's my report.
Thanks, Scott. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is presented for action. Are there any committee members that have questions or would like to pull an item from the consent agenda for a separate discussion?
Madam Chair, this is Roger. I just want on the minutes, if just spell my last name correctly, if that could be amended in the future, just because sometimes people send me emails and it's not right and it gets rejected. So that's all. If there's no other questions or comments, I would move approval for the consent agenda.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second. Peoria.
Okay, we have a first and second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Are there any dissenting remarks? Okay, so with that, the consent agenda passes. The next item on the agenda is the federal government relations consulting services item. Scott, do you want to introduce this item?
I will, and I'll turn it over to Alexis Tamaron-Kinsey, who is our Director of Government Relations. Alexis?
Thank you, Scott. Mr. Rowell, members, as you'll recall, when this item was brought up for consideration last month. It was tabled at Mr. Paniagua's request. Well, he agreed the federal lobbyists and the services they provide are needed by Valley Metro and are incredibly valuable to the region, and that Cardinal had done a great job given the unanticipated circumstances that we were faced with. He did want an opportunity to talk more about the request and get some additional questions answered. Today, I hope to address some of those questions and questions brought to me by your city staff without totally repeating what I've already outlined in the revised memo, because I understand the memo is rather long. For context purposes, I'll share that for several years, Valley Metro RPTA and Valley Metro Rail did not retain Washington, D.C. based lobbyists to represent its interest as a regional transit agency with multiple large projects and other initiatives in development. Knowing that these projects initiatives would require federal participation, it was in mid-2017, after consulting with member cities, that the decision was made to secure the services of a federal lobbyist. In August of 2017, a request for proposals was issued. A month later, after a standard procurement process, Cardinal Infrastructure was identified and recommended by a panel of member city and Valley Metro staff as the most qualified and high-ranked firm. Cardinal is a woman-owned boutique bipartisan firm specializing specifically in transportation infrastructure and economic development policy at the federal level. Their clients include public transit agencies, cities, regional authorities, as well as some private sector businesses and nonprofit organizations. Cardinal's proposal and services contract provided for a monthly retainer-based agreement with a prospective workload consisting of normal and routine lobbying, tracking, and monitoring activities, and was based at $10,000 a month for 60 months. As the revised memo sought to highlight in less than 4 pages, was that their workload was anything but normal or routine. It has been materially significant and substantially above the workload and expectations anticipated when the RFP was issued in August of 2017. This included consequential challenges at the local and federal level, as well as having to help mitigate the COVID-19 related impacts to our regional transit system. And since the middle of 2018, at Valley Metro's request, and on behalf of our member cities, Cardinal's lobby efforts took a crisis mode posture and whatever it takes sense of urgency. In the face of these serious challenges and critical situations, we instructed Cardinal, specifically Anya Graves and her partner Sherry Little, to increase their level of engagement with the federal government. We also asked them to leverage to the fullest extent possible their relationships with administration officials, members of Congress, and key congressional committee staff to keep Valley Metro priorities alive and moving forward. It's important to note that Sherry has spent 15 years on Capitol Hill, including 9 years as a senior staff to the Senate Banking Committee, which has jurisdiction over transit matters. She also served as the Deputy Administrator and Acting Administrator of the FTA. Consequently, in direct correlation to this additional work that we requested of them, the region and its taxpayers have been the beneficiary of upwards of $1.3 billion in discretionary grants and COVID-related funding that has benefited every member agency that pays for transit service across the region. This is in addition to the $850 million allocated to transit in Arizona that is being held up as part of the ongoing negotiations in Congress, including the reauthorization of the FAST Act, which funds all transit programs across the country. The renewal of the FAST Act, which was included in the bipartisan infrastructure bill, of which our U.S. senators play a critical role in negotiating. In fact, Senator Sinema sits on the Committee of Jurisdiction, the Senate Banking Committee that oversees all transit, as I mentioned, all transit matters previously. That being said, considering Cardinal's response to the multiple crises we were forced to deal with and the significant amount of additional workload they took on, we agreed to 2 times to adjust their monthly retainer. In July 2019, we increased the retainer from $10,000 to $13,000 a month. And in January 2021, we increased it to $16,000 a month, which is the current rate. These increases were made within approved contract totals and board-approved annual RPTA and VMR budgets. The adjusted monthly retainer of $16,000 remains within the board-approved budget for the fiscal year 22, but if paid through the end of the contract in December 22, the total amount will exceed the original 5-year approved total contract authority by $224,000, hence the request before you today. Cardinal's rate request was fair, equitable, and justified for the amount of additional work they took on at our request. The recently adjusted rate is also reasonable and remains below peer agency expenditures for similar services when considering the level of service requested and provided, the types of lobbying services that will continue to be required in the coming years, and quite frankly, the overwhelming success that has been achieved by Cardinal during this existing contract. This is why I also included in your memo the listing of what our peer agencies pay on a monthly rate. To answer the question about timing and notification that I've received from some of your staff, the situation on the ground changed so rapidly and so significantly that we adjusted and reacted accordingly, and within procurement guidelines on modifying existing contracts. We do have a process we follow when considering equitable adjustments such as these that are guided by our procurement manual to document and justify and provide justification to any sort of modification. Those processes were followed, reviewed, and signed off on by a number of individuals to ensure proper procedure was followed, documentation was provided, and budget authority and approval existed. In retrospect, this could have been timed and notified properly, differently, yes. But in the midst of a fire breaking out on the local and federal level, in addition to a global pandemic, here we are today. So in regards to the question on timing and notification on overall contract changes, which I know has been a question, this is a separate conversation we can have with your city staff, perhaps at the next RTAG meeting. This would allow for discussion on the more complex contracts we have and flexibility thereof as an agency to make management decisions. Lastly, before I open it up for questions, I just wanted to relay to you what I've shared with your staff. Because this contract ends in December of 22, we anticipate going out for an RFP for these services again in July or August of 2022, which is the start of the next fiscal year. This will ensure that we do not have any gap in our federal coverage and account for any potentially new congressional makeup after the midterms. And as we've done before, city staff will be asked to participate in the evaluation of proposals and expectations moving forward. And with that, Ms. Harrell, I'm happy to answer any further questions.
Thank you, Alexis. Does anybody have any questions for Alexis?
Sarah, this is Mario.
Go ahead, Mario.
So first of all, I just wanted to thank Scott for the comments he made regarding Ed Zerk. I really appreciate that, and I'll make sure to pass that along to Ed today. I know that mean a lot to him, so I really appreciate that. And I just want to first thank the committee for allowing the additional time to discuss this, to get some more of our questions answered on this, and giving us that at that last meeting to continue this item. I want to thank Alexis for all of her work in responding to the questions and making some revisions to the memo and getting more into the details about this. And she and I have had conversations and appreciate all that she's done and time that she's put into this and the thought and care she's given it. And so I also want to restate, and Alexis mentioned this earlier, the federal lobbyist we believe is needed. We know that Valley Metro has a great need for this work, the region. It's important to all of us. And so with much of our transit services and capital projects funded by the federal government, the consultants' time, expertise, and relationships in this area are essential. And Cardinal Infrastructure appears to have done a good job during difficult and unpredictable times. So we appreciate that as well. However, this discussion is really about the process, as Alexis mentioned. And we're talking about a cost increase of more than 1/3, with the funding authority expected to run out with more than a year remaining if we didn't do anything. So, Alexis, you mentioned the fire and having to respond quickly, but the way the process played out kind of creates a fire on this side of things now with the funding running out, and so we're having to deal with it in a different way than that's ideal. The justification and the follow-up method memos didn't really outline new scope of work or the type of work, but just the more challenging circumstances which to do the work they're doing, which, you know, we can all relate to. But it's, again, it comes back to the board not having the knowledge of the change, the increased payments that began in June 19, but just this year heard about that. So the kind of where we are with this is that I just want to say that Phoenix is supportive of approving this item. However, the item revealed the need to revise the process so that RPTA and Valley Metro Rail boards are notified and involved much sooner in the decisions to increase payments that will require cost change orders to contracts. So we request that Valley Metro bring an item to the next RTAG meeting, as Alexis suggested, to discuss a proposed process change that addresses this. The intent of the request is for contracts above the board's approval threshold, that the board approval be requested in a very timely manner from when a cost change order is proposed or requested. And so recognizing that the discussions coming at RTAG would include a discussion on what that appropriate time frame would be. So with that, I would make a motion to approve with that additional language that I just talked about the process change coming to RTAG.
All right, I think so would with you on that we would approve this contract, and I think the process has been a challenge for a while, and this is probably an appropriate time to review that process as we look on bringing on a new CEO and kind of set a standard of expectations going forward. Does anybody else have any questions or comments?
Madam Chair, I do, from Peoria. Just a clarification of Phoenix in the motion. Taking it to RTAG is, I think, a wise suggestion, and thank you, Alexis, for the explanation. Particularly appreciate the kind of where you went with respect to the notification process and everything else. That's difficult to do, but I appreciate that. But kind of back to Phoenix, do you anticipate a length? What's the length of time you would anticipate for something like this? Are we talking, 3 months, 6 months, a year? I'm just kind of curious about that part of it.
Madam Chair, this is Mario. Eric, are you talking about how long it would take to get the process updated?
Yeah. What I'm really kind of getting at is I think it's a great conversation on accountability. I think it occurs at many, many different levels with procurement and contract management. So yeah, that would be the big question. What's the time horizon you envision for something like this?
Yeah, great question. From my perspective, I was not thinking that this would be tied to a new CEO or any things like that we would get RTAG working on at the next meeting, potentially have them hammer out some language on a revised process that could be implemented. I hate to give a specific time frame on that, just in case a couple meetings are needed, but within a 2 to 3 months.
And that would be just a follow-up question. That would be all inclusive of all contracts in general, correct? So we can hopefully engineer a solution into the future. So this type of thing, it's okay to raise it if it's an issue. And we have a policy in place for Valley Metro, the governing board, to address it. That's the intent.
That's my intent, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Just if I can provide some additional clarification on the conversations I've had, not only with Mario, but with other member cities, is that I'm committed to making sure that we bring that up for discussion. This is a type of discussion that RTAG should be having with the technical staff, just knowing the complex nature of some of our more larger contracts and what that could look like or mean in terms of notification and kind of making sure we know where we're headed or can estimate without providing inflated estimates to you as member cities of what costs or impacts this may have on the future. But in terms of just as a follow-up item, what I had recommended also to, because this is a new and separate item, that when we get to the point in the agenda here, I believe item 6 for future agenda item request for TMC RMC, that you have this as a standing request so that we can return back to you once we have those conversations at RTAG. And like Mario mentioned, I do believe it may take a couple of meetings because I also want to make sure that information is, if asked for and can be provided in a timely fashion from finance and procurement to answer kind of those process questions and or appropriate timelines that are necessary that don't make the process cumbersome, but allow for an efficiency and a timeline that is appropriate.
Are there any other questions or comments out there?
So, Madam Chair, it's just Peoria again. We had lengthy conversation here about, the reality of federal representation in this particular contract. I think what I kind of had to wrap my arms around was the dollar increase to this, certainly, and you've gone over that. I think with respect to Mario's suggestion, his motion, I think that's wise. We're here to kind of help monitor these things and help Valley Metro remain successful and continue to be successful. So if there are other like contracts that are out there, it'd be great to make those a part of the process. But I would generally be supportive of where Phoenix is coming from. So just share that.
Last call. Anybody else have anything else they want to add on this item?
Madam Chair, this is Roger. Just formally want to second the motion. I don't think that's been done yet. So
that was going to be my next move, to ask for a second.
Thank you.
So we have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody opposed, please say nay. Okay, with that, this item moves forward to the board. Item 5, travel expenditures and solicitations. This item is for information only. After reviewing it, do any of the committee members have any questions on these items? Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to future agenda items and current events. And Alexis, this is where we'll add the, what do we want to call it? The procurement review process, the change order review process to this as a standing item so that it's coming and it's being worked on.
Yes, I assume that's what Mario will ask to be brought up.
Yes, Madam Chair, I would request that we add that to the future agenda, starting with the next meeting.
How do you want that worded, Mario?
I think, change order process review, or, it works for me. The way you said it was fine too.
We can provide it.
Madam Chair, I'm a little, we're really not talking about change orders here in the traditional sense, because now we're getting into change orders as it relates to construction and capital projects, which is a whole different issue, and which is not really the same issue that we're talking about here, because many times we have change orders that are completely within budget and contractual and project basis. So I think perhaps what we're talking about are issues that would affect overall contract authorization, unless I'm wrong on that, because those are the kinds of changes that came up, or that the issues that came up on this. Am I wrong on that? Or because I just want to make sure we're wading into something that we understand and that we can focus on the specific issue. I mean, we'll deal with the specific issue, but if we do something overly broad, then we may not give you what you really are looking for, and I want to make sure that we're focusing on what you really want.
Are you okay with Scott's recommendation?
Yes, yes, it's not intended to cover all change orders. It's really just those that are focused on cost increases, increase of payments that are likely going to affect the overall contract authority. So yeah, that clarification is fine. I'm not sure, Scott, did you have a recommended way of referring to this for a future
Well, I think
meeting?
the way you recommended it, or the way you stated it right there is a description of what we're talking about. If there is a change in a payment or any type of thing that would raise the question as to whether overall contract authority would be exceeded, that should come back. The process should entail some sort of notification or process back to the management, to the boards as early as possible, if I'm understanding you correctly.
Yes.
Okay, because we have change orders all the time within contracts that don't entail that don't exceed the contract or the budget or any of that kind of stuff. It's just, you know, changes to accommodate things. And I'm not sure that that's what you really want to hear about. You do want to hear about if we have a 5-year contract and something happens like this, whatever it is, during the course of that contract, that puts the entire contract in question as to whether that will be exceeded. That's what I'm hearing you referring to, is those types of situations, and hear about those earlier rather than later. Am I hearing that correctly? Okay.
That's right.
So for an
We'll come up with
agenda,
some wording. We'll come up with some specific wording and pass it around.
if I may add just, and just so that I heard this correctly, because also I'm going to agendize this for our tag. It's contract authority change discussion and update, because we'll be providing an update perhaps at the next TMC meeting that doesn't require action because we may not be done with our discussion, but we will be providing an update as we proceed.
Thank you.
Other than this particular item, does anybody have any other agenda items they'd like to request? Okay, hearing none, this concludes the joint meeting of the Transit Management and Rail Management Committee. All right, the next meeting of the TMC RMC is scheduled for Wednesday, November 3rd at 11 a.m. So now we will convene the Transit Management Committee meeting for October. And first we have public comment, and this is an opportunity for the public to address the committees for up to 3 minutes. Pat, do we have any speakers for public comment?
I believe Blue has another comment for TMC agenda.
Come up to the microphone.
How you doing? I look at the proposed service changes, and we'll be getting to that in a moment, but in your last meeting, you did the contract increase for the van pool. And if you'll look at where it says discussion and consideration, it says today nearly 1,000 plus, which to me, if there were 1,100 plus, they'd have 11, if, you know. So when it says 1,000 plus Valley residents commute daily via 200 Valley Metro van pools with an average commute of 75 miles, taking thousands. Well, if you have just 1,000 plus, that's not thousands, and it's not the way you need to be dealing with it. With the service changes you have coming up, I'll be turning the document, a page of it again, to staff, and the highlighted ones I have here are Camelback Road in 2012 was to go to Litchfield. Bell Road in 2018, the Loop 303 to Frank Lloyd Wright. Waddell, Thunderbird, Litchfield Road to Scottsdale Air Park. That's 2019. 2020, we've got Buckeye to Bell Road on 99th Avenue. Where is that? Where was the planning for it? Why wasn't it done or addressed? I know that we had that recession, but I note that every single one of the rail projects has got funds for it, and if the pot is what it is, we should have more money than them, and the buses should be getting done more in that. I look at the one that it says here for 2022, 83rd Avenue and 75th Avenue from Desert Sky Mall to Arrowhead. Where is that service change? Where is it listed for April? For that's a year after when it's supposed to be done. And my favorite part of this document is the express. It says for 2022, an express loop from Arrowhead Town Center to Desert Sky Mall on the 303. I don't understand why they wouldn't do that on the 101 since it's a straight line and it's adding 20 miles, but that's the planning that we were able to get through. So the electeds wanted to know, hey, why this isn't happening, and all the excuses can be whatever they can be. But when you don't even try to plan for it, how do you think it's going to get done? And as to this week, Customer Service Appreciation Day, my statements at the electeds will cover it that on the holiday in September when I tried to use customer service, it wasn't even working. So if it's so good, why can't you have it working all the time that people need to use it? 24/7, if that's what your buses are, but at least all the time the rail is running.
Madam Chair, Madam Chair, if I could Mr. Crowley mentioned the request, and I think it's been brought up to the electeds. That was during the Audit and Finance Committee. I just want to make you aware that request from the Audit and Finance Committee was to get some more information onto the history. Mr. Crowley commonly refers to the original Prop 400, which was 2004. I know that some of you were involved in the rebalancing that took place in 2009 or 2010. I'm trying to forget when that was, which was specifically run by the fact that we are going to end up $2 billion short in collections over the life of Prop 400 for transit alone, which is why the bus routes look different. And the Audit and Finance Subcommittee asked us, staff, to prepare an analysis and further explain that and the history of that, and that's what is being referred to, that we will give them an update, and that will, of course, be shared with you. I just wanted to let you know what we have committed to provide to staff, and it will be focused on revenue and available monies so you can run bus routes. Thank you.
Okay, item number 2 is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is presented for action. Are there any committee members that have any questions or would like to pull an item for further discussion from the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda?
This is Mario. I move to approve the consent agenda.
This is Roger, a second.
Have first a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Okay, the consent agenda passes. Item number 3 is the proposed April 2022 service changes. Scott, I don't know which staff is going to talk about this.
Joe Gregory, we'll ask Joe to get up and give a brief overview of what the changes that are in there are.
Hi, thank you, Scott. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. We do have April 2022 proposed service changes coming up. We'll first start with Phoenix and the Mary Circulator. This would be to extend the route to the Estrella Village within Phoenix. The next one is on the Avondale Zoom, a small change to the area near Thomas and 111th Avenue to address some safety issues. And then we're also looking at the layer of location and some of the time point locations to make sure that we're operating this as efficiently as possible. The next one is Scottsdale, the 68th Street Camelback route. This would also extend the route further into Scottsdale to connect to other Scottsdale routes as well as other fixed routes. And finally, the last one is Route 128, Stapley Drive. This would expand weekday service from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. and then improve Saturday and Sunday service span to 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. and frequency to 30 minutes. This is the, we're notifying of public outreach that'll begin in November, and we plan to have the public hearing on November 16th, which again will be virtual as it has been the last few times. And that's all for the service changes. Are there any questions?
Questions or comments for? Not. Thanks, Joe. This item is presented for information. So item 4, future agenda items, requester reports and current events. Does anybody have any agenda items they'd like to add to a future agenda? Hearing none, this concludes the Transit Management Committee meeting for October. Our next meeting is Wednesday, November 3rd at 11 a.m.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Pat, it's Stephen. You just let me know when you want me to convene the Rail Management Committee meeting.
Okay, we'll just give everybody a second to disconnect if they're going to. And
Sounds good.
looks like we're good to go.
Okay, thank you, Pat. I am convening the Wednesday, October 6th, 2021 meeting of the Rail Management Committee. Our first order of business today is public comments. Pat, do we have any public comments?
I believe Blue has another comment to make.
Thank you. Mr. Crowley, you have 3 minutes.
I love that on your debts that you'll be paying is we're going to acquire these different rail cars, and it's going to come out of the rail budget. Isn't that positive? And that what did you use the money to put those rails down? Oh, out of the bus budget. So when I hear the executive director say, well, you know, we lost $2 billion in transit. Well, how much did the rail lose? With your planning and with what you're doing, in my last months, I brought up the fact that over 300 people died from heat related here in the valley. And that at every one of your stops, you have a drinking fountain. Is there anything that stops you from putting that out during the 110 and above and say, hey, if you're out there and you need to hydrate and you don't know where one of those stations is, come to the bus. But would that be addressed? No, because we don't see rail passengers as clients. Because if you saw them as clients and customers, why would you have a statement that says, if you're using our system, all you do is get on it and get off it and get away? Do you have art at every single one of those stops? Yeah, but why would you want anybody to observe, look, or participate with it? I also find it abhorrent that with your rail planning, why this committee doesn't do anything about heavy rail, especially with what the feds want to do when it comes to heavy rail. They want commuter rails dealt with and bullet trains. But do we have any heavy rail in any of your communities? 28 of the MAG communities have heavy rail in them. Why aren't we using that as a part of our answer to the pollution problem and equation? And with that, I'll give you back 30 seconds of your lives. You have a pleasant, and thinking about my girlfriend who passed away, she would want you to have it.
Thank you, Mr. Crowley. I'm sorry to hear about your girlfriend passing away as well. It's never easy. We'll move on to our next item. Item 2 is our consent agenda. There's 2 items. Is there a request to pull any of the items off consent agenda? Are there any questions for staff? Hearing none, do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to accept.
And that was, oh, that was Jody. Okay, thank you, Jody. And second?
Second, this is Mario.
Thank you, Mario. I have a motion by Jody and a second by Mario. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Our next item of business is future agenda items. Are there any future agenda items you'd like added to the list? Hearing none, our next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, November 3rd at 11 a.m. You all have a great day, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Did I miss something? Oh,
No,
okay.
you're all set. Thank you.
Okay, just checking in. Thanks, Pat.
All right. Bye.